Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Jeremy Williams. Jeremy is a certified Genos Emotional Intelligence practitioner and a seasoned consultant with over 16 years of experience helping businesses improve team performance and client retention. Working across industries like tech, finance, and hospitality, Jeremy empowers leaders to develop vital skills, including active listening, empathy, and tactful communication. As the creator of the Peer Coaching 460 program, Jeremy facilitates transformative cross industry cohorts, fostering collective intelligence and delivering actionable insights that bridge personal growth with organizational success. Welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast, Jeremy Williams.
Thank you for inviting me. Great to be here. Plenty to
So,
discuss.
yes, so you're located in Australia?
No, no, I'm British, as you can probably tell from my accent,
Okay,
but I'm
because you
actually
said something about
located.
Australia. Okay, go on.
No, no, no. I know I look a little bit yeah, sunburned, as it were, but no, I'm based in France. Actually, I live near Versailles in France, not far from Paris.
Okay. All right. And how did you end up in France?
Oof. Well, there's a long story and a short story. The short story is in 2008, I moved out of the property industry after the crash in the UK and did a complete turnaround, moved from sales into the world of coaching. And at the time, I decided that, hey, France is just over the channel. Why not? Let's try somewhere new, new job, new country. Let's go for it. So I ended up in Paris and built my way from there. So it's been a
And
great experience.
so you must like Paris.
Yes, I prefer to live outside of Paris and
Okay.
to go in and out as and when I would like to with my family. But yes, it's obviously a beautiful city and a lovely place to be for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. So maybe I'll start with just a general, if we were to see Jeremy in a week in the life of Jeremy Williams, and I'm saying a week because I'm sure day to day probably isn't the same, but can you give us an idea of what you do?
So, I have spent a lot of time over the last 5, 6, 7 years in particular working with startups and hypergrowth scale-ups around Paris, which by definition, are really exciting companies. Some of them I started, when there were just 4 or 5 people working from an apartment, and now some of those companies have 4, 5, or 600 people plus. So it's been fascinating to have accompanied these amazing companies on the journey right from the word go. And one thing I started to see pretty quickly was that as they scaled, so they moved from very small family type businesses into global entities, there were some real challenges when it came to team cohesion, especially when they needed to bring in some levels of management. And very often, these people were brought in, seasoned professionals from the big names were brought in from outside, and there was, there was plenty for them to get their teeth into, and there were many challenges that they started facing. So that was fascinating. And what I quickly worked out was that these teams, they had loads of energy, super positivity, but they needed organizing and they needed to boost their emotional intelligence. Back then, back in 2017, 18, people sort of called it soft skills. And then Capgemini came out with their famous survey that they did of top management all around the world, many in the Western world. They concluded that emotional intelligence would be a must-have skill in the coming 5 years, and they were absolutely right. So that really sort of awoken my senses, let's say, to emotional intelligence.
Can I just jump in with a question?
Mhm.
When you were seeing that they needed emotional intelligence, what were you actually seeing? Like, what was this is emotional intelligence that they need right now? That's the indicator. What was it?
Yeah, so self-awareness. So the first key competency of emotional intelligence and the positive behavior is being present. So this was an era where technology was really coming into the mix. Slack, WhatsApp on the desktop, etc., etc., etc. So people were finding it very hard to focus because they were being overwhelmed. Everybody was hitting them up on Slack. I need this, I need that, and they were all over the place. And it was really difficult in many of the meetings, internal and external meetings with stakeholders, to actually remain focused. So there was definitely a challenge regarding, okay, how can we channel our energy in the most productive way possible? And everybody started to focus then on time management. And I remember thinking at the time management's interesting, but really we need to think about energy management.
Yeah.
That's the key. Our attention is actually, I would say, more precious than our time in that sense. So there was definitely the self-awareness aspect, and then the awareness of others. So the positive behavior, empathy. And this obviously has been talked about a lot over the last few years. And I'm a massive advocate of empathy. I think for me, it's one of the foundational aspects of modern society. If we want to live in a peaceful world, in a world that is innovative but keeps people at the heart of it, so especially in the era that we're in, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, I'm sure, artificial intelligence, empathy is that spine that we need to stick to. It's the key of being a great human being. So how to show genuine empathy with our stakeholders? How do we show up in the eyes of our stakeholders? So that really kicked things off for me. And I moved from coaching, soft skills, really into emotional intelligence at that moment. So it really opened my eyes very
Mm.
much.
And then I know that I had kind of interrupted you and you were continuing on with your story. Do you know where you were at?
Yeah, absolutely. So working with these hypergrowth companies, saw a lot of people coming and going, and obviously the challenge with scaling. So how do you bring in how do you bring in middle management that is more experienced, but put a structure in place, but also give them the freedom to be entrepreneurs, and that's where things really started to progress. And from there, I mean, I work a lot with these hypergrowth companies. So we work on team building, how to push and pull feedback, which I think is incredibly important because we all know feedback is a gift. How to manage conflict, how to have those difficult conversations. Something as simple as how to be present. I mean, we've had whole training sessions on this. It's like, okay, if you're an employee in this company, if you're in the sales side of things, or whether you're in the HR department, whether you're training front end developer, back end developer, how do you demonstrate that you're actually present when you're interacting with your stakeholders? What are some of the keys to make sure that you show up in a very assertive way and that's conducive to building really solid, long lasting professional relationships that build trust? So you can go very deep with subjects like this, and it's absolutely fascinating. How do you show empathy? It's easy to say. Everybody says, "Yeah, of course, empathy is really important," but how do you actually demonstrate that? How do you walk the walk rather than just talk the talk? So, yeah, I mean, just one thing just to add is that Simon Sinek came out with his, start with why. And that was really interesting because everybody was like, yeah, we like that. Apple came out with this, everything we do, we aim to challenge the status quo. Brilliant. Sounds cool, is cool. So they moved from the what to then start with why. But what I noticed, nobody was talking about how. It's all very well, they've got these new millennials coming on board, full of energy, loads of enthusiasm, all these great ideas, and everything, all the values are written on the walls, and everything's cool, free food, bean bags, brilliant environment. But then a few of them started to say to me, but nobody's telling us how to behave.
Yeah.
What are the behaviors that we need to epitomize, we need to live, at every moment to demonstrate that we are emotionally intelligent, that we are genuine, that we really want to add value to the world. And that was a real challenge. And that's where I started to pick up on some ideas and very short training sessions with some very pragmatic skills that they could take away and apply straight away. So very hands-on, and they lapped it up. They love this type of training. 30-minute sessions, 1 hour sessions max. Right, go for it, apply, and then come back next week and we'll build, build, build. So that's where I've been putting my energy. Well, I love it.
That's great. And what's the difference between like Genos emotional intelligence and some other, you know, form of emotional intelligence?
Yeah, so Dr. Ben Palmer, he obviously was very inspired by Daniel Goleman and all that was done beforehand. But I think Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence, really brought it to the masses. And then Dr. Ben Palmer looked at it and thought, okay, up until that point, emotional intelligence had been a very academic subject. So if you were in that zone, you'd studied it, etc., then of course you knew about it. But the masses, including many management, many people in management, they just didn't really know. They'd heard about it, but didn't really know about it. What I think Genos did that was really clever is they managed to codify it. They put it down into a very simple and easy to digest way that, with a basic bit of training, consultants could be onboarded and become practitioners. That's the training that I went through with Derek McCann for Genos Europe, which was a really interesting and insightful series of sessions. And also managers were brought on board as well. So it's very applied emotional intelligence. You can quickly see through some of the initial activities exactly how this could be applied in your company, whether you're in pharmaceutical industry or whatever. So that's what I think is really good about Genesis in that sense. It brought it to the masses.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think you're making such an important point about the how though, because if we don't actually do it, then writing on the wall doesn't mean a whole lot.
Absolutely. And definitely the millennial generation. And I mentioned the millennials, I have mentioned them a few times because it's a fascinating generation because they are now coming into and they are in positions of power
Mm-hmm.
in companies and in governments around the world. So they have a very different view in many cases to the older generation that are now moving towards retirement. So we're effectively seeing a changing of the guard. And this is fascinating. It brings with it huge opportunity, but it also brings with it huge challenges because in some companies you have 3 or 4 generations working side by side, which, just to be clear, can be very complementary if it's leveraged in the right way. I've seen super success stories with that. But definitely this generation, from what I've experienced, if they come into a company and they see the values written around the place and then they start to see behaviors that are anything other than those values, they won't hang about.
They're not afraid to call you out on stuff too.
For sure. I mean, we
This
saw
is
that with,
hypocritical. I'm not seeing this. Not matching
yeah,
up.
absolutely. And we saw that with the Great Resignation just after COVID. I think it really blindsided a lot of people, a lot of
Mm,
companies like, whoa, people are leaving in this uncertain period. Well, actually, a lot of those people were from this generation that were like, no, no, that's not the company that I was told this would be. So I'm off. So I think that was a very powerful message to the world is you have to talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk. And
mm,
if you want to do that, you have to show your employees the behavior, and you have to demonstrate the behaviors that you expect um, inside of your organization. And I think that's great. I mean, that's a really good thing in my view.
yeah, fair too.
Yeah.
Um, have you seen leaders be a little resistant to having to I guess walk the walk, walk the talk?
Yeah, I mean the older generation. Again, generally speaking,
Mhm.
I mean, many exceptions, but I think generally speaking, yes, people have accepted this, but there obviously have been many cases of people, kicking back, especially if it was the sort of kick ass and take names approach, the old military type leadership. For sure, those people have had a real challenge dealing with this, and in many cases, they've left or have been eased out over time. But generally, I think the audience, let's say, that the audiences that I've worked with have welcomed this approach because they've all been told to read books, since the onboarding. Okay, you need to read this book, and this book, great. But nobody's really told them, okay, so how does this apply here, and how can we help you with, to actually realize this on a daily basis in your job, and that's where they've been crying out for help.
Mm,
And it's good to see that we've managed to, to help some of these people. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I'm very interested in talking about collective intelligence, what you call collective intelligence. First of all, what is collective intelligence? I certainly have a picture in my mind, and I'm wondering what it is in your mind.
Right. So when I was in my earlier days of rolling out the cohorts for certain organizations, let's imagine a training session for a load of sales executives, sales managers, for example, say 35 people from different countries, different business units. Some of them knew each other, some didn't, on a subject like managing conflict, for example, right? So they come together, they all get really excited for the session. Yeah, I've got some things that I'm sure, we could take away from this. So the session starts a couple of hour session with a bit of a break in the middle, right? So people arrive, get the warmers done, you get into the subjects and breakout room sessions, activities, etc., etc. So I think a lot of people have been to sessions like that, talking about online stuff now, right? They get a fair bit of value out. But I often felt that people were leaving, and there was a sense with a few of those people they would have loved to have shared a real problem or challenge that they had been facing at that time. But because they didn't feel psychologically safe enough to share that with their peers, maybe some people in that cohort that actually were involved in this particular conflict, they just kept quiet. So there was a sense that some of them were being shortchanged. They were leaving, and a few times I remember thinking, two or three people here would have really loved to have opened up and got some insight from their peers, but they didn't feel safe enough to do that. So that happened quite a few times over quite a few years. Of course, in many cases, those people, if they had had real challenges, maybe would have gone to their mentor or had one-to-one coaching in a confidential environment and addressed this issue. So you effectively have the company-led training sessions on some great subjects for sure. They're rolled out all around the world every day. And then you have the one-to-one sessions. But there was an opportunity, there was a gap in the middle. And that's how Peer Coaching 460 was born, where I thought, well, okay, let's get four people together. So a small group, right?
Mm-hmm.
From different areas of the business or different business units or even different companies, different industries. You bring these people together. So it's a small group where they hopefully will feel confident to share. They come from with different perspectives. So they've got different angles on different challenges. And you have it over 4 weeks, 4 sessions, 60 minutes a session. Each person has one session dedicated to them. So they drop into the hot seat, right? And in a very structured way, for the first 10 minutes, they get to pitch their challenge, whatever it is, okay, to their peers. All right. So they pitch their challenge. 10 minutes later, for the next 10 minutes, their peers ask them questions just to ascertain the detail, the specifics of this challenge. Then we ask the candidate, as I call them, okay, so the person who has shared, to switch off their camera and microphone, pick up a pen and paper, because it's always good to write things down, even with all this tech, because it helps you obviously remember it.
Sure.
Observe their peers deliberating over their challenge. Now, these people from different companies, different industries, so they're bringing different perspectives, different ideas in. Okay, so take notes, observe, however you want to roll in that sense, right?
And while they're observing everybody else talking about their problem, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Which is an interesting experience. Okay.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I
Yeah,
love that
yeah,
the camera off, they get a
exactly.
chance to sort of like, yes, I'm a fly on the wall, but I'm not participating right now. That's fascinating.
Exactly. And sometimes what I do is halfway through, about 10 minutes, I say, okay, would you like to just have a little pause and anything you would like to say? Or, and sometimes people say, yeah, sometimes, no, no, I'm cool. It's very insightful. Let's carry on. So we do that for 20 minutes. And then for the last 20 minutes, I bring everybody back together and the peers share their insight. And then we put together an action plan.
Hmm.
And the peer then takes these ideas away. If they want to apply them, fine. If they don't, fine. Of course, that's purely up to them, like receiving feedback, which is
Yeah.
the way it should be anyway. And then next week, the next person comes into the seat and that person takes the peer coaching role. So that's why I call it collective intelligence, because my theory is that if you have a challenge in business and in life, it's almost sure that someone else out there somewhere has had something similar. And if you can go into an environment where you have no fear or a very low fear of being judged because it's not your boss in the room or a colleague that might be involved, if somebody has an objective view, you're more likely to open up and candidly share.
Mm.
And that's exactly what the peer coaching cohorts are all about. It's accessible because it's 4 weeks, it's 1 hour, okay, and it's a small group of people, and so it's quite intimate in that sense. So people very often open up. I've actually got my April cohort starting tomorrow, actually. I've got 4 people from all around Europe, and we're embarking on this 4 week journey tomorrow. And one little extra on this is actually followed by artificial intelligence assistant
Uh,
called Ula, and she actually joins the meeting and she observes, she takes notes, and she sends us a recording. So that's a great way for all the participants to reflect and extend the learning as well.
yeah. I like the idea. It's a cool idea. I'm sure that's very effective. It's
Thank you.
important for people to also have the opportunity to share their wisdom with each other, for
For
them
sure.
to grow in their own voice, for them to feel more confident about their own opinions. So I think that that's another added value to what you're talking about.
For sure, because if you think about it, I mean, the ability to actively listen, to share feedback in a very candid way, in a diplomatic way, all of these type of skills are very, very important in many roles in business. So the idea with the cohorts is you get to sit both sides of the table. You get to put your problem or your challenge forward and have insight, but you also get to listen to other people's problems and challenges and help them too. So the whole idea really behind this is to build a global community of peers who can, work in a very reciprocal way and share this best practice, this insight from many different industries right across the world. That would be the ultimate goal,
Yeah.
to build a community of peers, which I
Yeah.
think we need more of that. We need more community building on a global scale.
I would definitely agree with that. And that's a
Yeah.
great segue into artificial intelligence. So, I know that we had talked about talking about artificial intelligence and the human side of things, being human and really, I don't know, approaching artificial intelligence with everything that we can bring as humans. I'm curious what your initial take is on that, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to go back and forth with on that.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is the era of generative artificial intelligence, there's no doubt about it, and it's changing the world forever. Um, it brings with it huge opportunity, and it also obviously brings with it huge challenges too. So I like to think of it as a net result, which is incredibly positive for humanity. But we have choices. And the first, I think, is mindset. It's very important to open your mind to this amazing technology. And that's one of the things that ChatGPT, I think, brought to the world is that everybody pretty much had access, anybody with an internet access had access to it. So it has leveled the playing field, which I think no technology has done ever before to that degree. Okay, the internet was a huge leap forward, of course. So, to that end, it's given many people a very powerful tool at their fingertips. A lot of people have started off using it like Google, but we all know that, prompting is incredibly important, and that's a whole that's a whole nother conversation. But the way I like to look at it, if you scale out, is AI, generative AI, is going to take control of the destination. If you look at life as a journey, right, the generative AI is going to do things faster and more accurately than any human being. Okay, within the next year to 2 years, the collective intelligence of artificial intelligence is likely to surpass human intelligence. And so it'll be able to work faster with virtually zero errors than any human. So people that have these type of roles working on Excel spreadsheets, formulas, etc., then their days are numbered, that's for sure. However, with an adjustment of mindset, they can really help to future-proof themselves. when it comes to their career. So what I think is good about this is it's obliging humans to focus away from the destination, the result, the deliverables, back to the journey. And the journey, this is where the interpersonal relationships with other humans comes into the mix. So, which is a good thing. It's bringing, so we've become over the last few decades with all this technology, we've become faster and faster and faster. Everything that all these great, these smartphones and tablets and everything, it's made us seemingly more efficient. And everybody seems to be running around at a crazy pace now. So in a way, this could be great for us because it's going to bring us back to focus on the journey. So it's the interpersonal relationships. It's those, the building of trust. We talked about empathy earlier on. There's no app for that. There's no quick fix to building trust between two or more humans. You've got to take time. So this is a great thing, in fact. And there are, in my opinion, three areas I think where AI just cannot compete with humans. The first is creativity. It can help us with the result, but the seed of creativity has to come from human beings. AI can definitely help with the process. But then if you think of some of the best songs, some of the best art, the most famous art in the world, a lot of it was actually, it came from mistakes.
That's right.
you know, brings up that whole word of what is perfection. I mean, I don't like this word because it's so subjective. What is
Yeah.
perfect? Many of the Beatles songs were not intended, the output was not what the guys actually intended when they started to write the songs, and same for many artists as well. So the perfection is in the imperfection.
Yeah.
So I think creativity is one aspect, reasoning is another. Even though generative AI has started to move into this realm, if if we have a problem to solve, if you're tasked with solving that problem and I am, because we've both had different lives, we will approach it in different ways.
Sure.
So reasoning is unique to us as people. Yes, you can bring together a collective average of, X amount of people's way of reasoning about something. You're gonna get these generic answers, but it's specific to us as humans. And the third point would be spirituality. Again, it's a personal journey. So the bar is being raised collectively, but to differentiate ourselves, our unique identifier in the face of the algorithm as human beings is emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
It's the one thing that separates us from the algorithm. And that's why I'm such a massive advocate of this, because it is going to be absolutely essential, and for our children as well in schools to be taught it, and to really get to understand the importance of emotional intelligence and how to behave in a way that is good for society and conducive to their success. So that's another conversation, but I think the educational world is going to be shaken up by this
Oh, yeah.
am- amazingly in the next few years, no doubt, as
Most
well as the business
definitely.
world. Yeah.
I yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. My kids are in high school now. I don't think that they're probably going to really see the changes that are going to happen. My daughter's graduating, my son's a freshman, so he's just has like 3 more years left in high school. Maybe he will, and they might see it in college too. But just how it takes a while for education to adapt to something so dramatically different, and in preparing kids for what's coming.
Absolutely. And I think if you think about, modern society, everything starts with education. It's fundamentally important. It's
Mhm.
building, by definition, we're building our future by educating our kids in the best way. This technology is not going anywhere. I mean, when you talk about generative AI, blockchain technology with tokenization, further down the line, quantum computers, this tech is here and it's all adding in to take us into the fourth industrial revolution, which is we're entering right now. So it's very important, to people listening out there to really embrace this technology. You don't need to dive in head first, but at least take it seriously and play with it. I mean, it's accessible, especially the generative AI. It's accessible. Play with it, learn how to prompt, have a bit of fun with it, because the people who will manage to leverage this technology will be the ones that will, I think, do very well in this next era that we're moving into.
Mm, yeah.
So get ahead of the pack and play with it and experiment with it.
I think of it
Absolutely.
I think of it like you talk about work smarter, not harder. Um, I think of it as thinking smarter, not harder.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we're trying to actually up level even the our ability and capacity for critical thinking and creativity and all that. Like that has to go up as we are seeing AI be able to do the things that we had been doing. Right? We have to continue to adapt, not just to the technology itself, but also um, thinking outside the box of what is possible for us to even accomplish.
For sure. Or actually removing the box full stop.
Yeah,
And if you think about it, the different leaps forward when we talk about, if you look back through the last few hundred years, the leaps forward through the different industrial revolutions, what they've effectively done is just put the human further along the line. And
yeah,
I think, yes, of course, certain people during these revolutions lost their jobs, but lots of people reskilled, retooled, and moved along the value chain. And I think that's exactly what's happening now. So we've talked for many years in consultancy about change management. And I think it's always been applicable and it always will be. But
yes,
again, right now, it's essential. The mindset, having different mindsets as you move, not just the growth mindset, but things like, teaching children and people in business how to have a 10x mindset, like to be able to move and be very agile and work incredibly quickly under pressure, how to have a stoic mindset, under super pressure, how to be calm, etc. So the different types of mindsets that we need, and that's in a VUCA world, that's what we need. We need that agility
yeah.
and the ability to move quickly, and that's critical. And again, emotional intelligence is right in the mix here.
It also seems like, and this is totally a part of emotional intelligence is and change management is embracing the fact that we're probably going to go through some grief along the way because it's hard to lose what is comfortable and what you've been doing. And I've certainly had to go through that a couple times in this, and maybe even in the last maybe 6 months, I feel like I've gone through it a couple times where I had to really like, oh, this really stinks that this is how this is going to impact my business in such a way or whatever. And then I've just but I would say it's kind of like grief and but then you have to move through it. You don't want to get stuck in that or resistant to it all. You'll have to go through it in order to get to the other side and say, okay, but now what can I do moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, resilience.
Yeah.
It's a key skill. The competency, self-awareness. If the negative behavior to do with self-awareness is temperamental, I mean, we've all had those days where the weather outside is not so good and we feel very low today, but the sun's shining the next day and we're like, yeah, rock and roll. Of course, we're all human, we have our ups and downs, but the ability on the whole to bounce back and to say, you know what, I know what I'm here to do. And this is another great aspect to this is that if you take the time in your life to find out who you really are, what is it that you're here to do on this planet? I mean, it's a very spiritual direction that we're going in with this, but it's incredibly important because when you get into tough times, that'll be your North Star, that'll be your guiding light that will see you through. And the ability to focus on what you can control as opposed to what you cannot control is is the key. And with this era of AI, to a degree, you can control it. You can learn about it. You can play with it, have fun with it. utilize. I mean, with my son's homework a few weeks ago, he's like, obviously everything has to be done through the phone or through the computer, like many teenagers or early teens. It's like, okay, so let's play with this then. Yeah, let's actually. You got to read this book, a real paper book. I'm sorry about that, but paper book. But what we're going to do is we're going to get the PDF version. I'm going to ask you to read 10 pages. I'm going to put those 10 pages, upload them to ChatGPT, and ask it to give me 10 comprehension questions on those 10 pages. I'll have it there on the laptop ready. You go to your room and read those pages. And when you've finished, like you've read it to understand it, not just read it like to read it, then you can come out and sit at the computer and then we can look at these 10 questions. A great use case of generative AI, and at the same time encouraging my son to read a real book.
Yeah.
So this is a very light example, but it's a way that you can start introducing AI into the mix in a very positive and constructive way, and they get
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah. So, one other thing that I think of when it comes to humans and AI and all that is just the personal connection, having actual connection with other people. And mentorship is one of those kind of connections that I think is so important, always has been, always will be, certainly is today. Um, when you think about your own mentors, and you think about the things that they did or practices that they did or something that really sticks out to you, what is something that you do now that you really or you want to do or whatever, but that really sticks out to you as a important mentoring kind of skill?
Um, the point that comes to my mind, just hearing you ask that question, is the fact that when I was in my earlier days in sales, because that was my early career in sales, it was with boats initially, and then Italian motorcycles, and then property.
Oh,
But I was
very
working.
exciting.
Yeah, it was an exciting period that was. I'm lucky to have got through it actually. Especially the part with motorbikes. Yes, that was a very naughty period. Um,
Naughty.
but my boss at the time, I think it's probably one of the best managers I've ever had. I was late to a meeting once with him, 10 minutes. And I knocked on the door and said, apologies for being late. And he said, no problem at all. But just be aware you've got 50 minutes now, not 60 minutes. Right. And smiled. So basically, what he was saying is, you've wasted your time, not my time, because I'm not going to make the next person late. And he closed his laptop and great guy, really, really good manager. We had a very productive meeting and that was that. But that was one of my first experiences working with him. And I was actually late because I was speaking to a prospect, somebody that actually come in, so a customer that was interested in spending money. Um, but he said to me a bit of time after that, that's an important lesson, Jeremy, because I was in my 20s during that period. And he said, you need to make sure that you keep really good with your timekeeping. It's really, really important because it's a matter of respect for other people because time is precious. And the other thing that he mentioned, and he epitomized this in all of his meetings, he said, when you're with me, I'm 100% with you. My phone is on silent and my laptop will be closed. You've got my undivided attention with whatever you want to discuss with me. I promise you something, I'm not going to be multitasking. I'm going to be focused on what we have to discuss. And I really appreciate that those two aspects, he really epitomized that. And I've tried to take that with me. So he wasn't my mentor per se, but
Sure.
he was the equivalent of, because I stayed in touch with him for a few years after that. And that had a real impact on me because especially now it's come back to me very often with all of these distractions that we have. My question to many people is how present are you when you're with your family, with your colleagues, with your customers? It's a question to ponder because it is a challenge.
It
Because the
is.
only time that's important is the now, in fact.
That's why I am not a fan of notifications.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are really good. That's really good. Jeremy, want to ask one more question, but first, where can people find you, connect with you?
Yeah, so two places. First on LinkedIn, if you type in Jeremy Williams, you'll find me pretty quickly. There aren't too many Jeremy Williamses out there, so you'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active, and also on my website, which is fluentexecutive.com. Okay, so just fluentexecutive.com, and you'll see my peer coaching, which I highlight there, as well as my 10x training, which are just very short training modules, one-to-one training modules, 50 minutes long, for example, on preparing for interviews, speaking with gravitas, one-to-one meetings, etc. So very small pocket-sized training sessions to help executives who are, short on time, but they want to maximize their impact.
That's great. We will link to those in the show notes.
Thank you.
Okay, my last question for you is if you could offer one challenge to someone who wants to help shape the future, what would that challenge be?
That challenge would be to go to a school and help children awaken their inner entrepreneur and empower them to think about what they would like to do in their lives to make the world a better place. I think we need a lot more of that. We need way more people who will take the time out of their busy schedules in whatever business they're in, even if it's just, I don't know, half an hour, 1 hour a month, or every quarter, to go to a school and captivate the audience. Not some traditional long presentation. No, a really, short and sharp and impactful, inspirational, chat to the kids and try and awaken their inner entrepreneur. Because I think that the idea of children memorizing things and coming up with this during exams, um, going for their great grades and moving on from there. For me, I think this is moving quickly into being a thing of the past. I think we really need to empower our kids and really try to bring out that entrepreneur in them because they're our future.
Hmm. That's a
So
great
that's
challenge.
my challenge.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your time today, Jeremy, for being a voice of influence for our listeners. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, great. So I hope people have got some insight, and if people can go away and reflect upon some of these points and challenge themselves, then that's great news.
Agreed.